Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'll be showing you guys the four most essential items that you need as a practicing Muslim in order to survive the 21st century. Now, if you use these things correctly and you implement them, you'll be able to avoid certain fitna, you'll be able to get closer to Allah, and most importantly, you'll be able to become a better Muslim in the sight of Allah and get closer to Him. Now, guys, as usual, if you have a prayer coming up, go and pray your salah. It is way more important than watching this video. Now, that actually links us on to the first point, which is this, a travel prayer mat. Now, why this is so important is because when you're in school, college, work, this incentivizes you more to go and pray your salah because you can pray on certain surfaces like grass, sand, hard concrete. And it's quite simple. I'll show you guys how to do it right now. So how this works is quite simple, right? You have the prayer mat that you kind of open from here. And then once you've opened it up, you just unwrap it like this. So then now, what you can do is, in case it's windy, you can put a rock in these four corners and then it prevents the mat from moving away. But if you are wearing shoes, probably don't stand on the mat itself, but stand like before the mat so that it doesn't make the mat dirty. Because obviously, for example, this place that I would be praying on if it was the time for the salah would be it'd be muddy. So my feet would just mess the mat and then I'd have to wash it again and again. So this is quite good in case you have like any skin conditions and you want to make sure that your skin doesn't get worse because of that. You can also use apps like Pillars in which you can find the Qibla direction so that you know the correct way or direction to pray in. So once that's done and you've pretty much prayed, you just pack it up like this. So you literally just fold it, and I would recommend folding it so that the dirty side is like being pressed in the middle like that. And then once it's folded like a few times, you can just squeeze it back in the pocket that it came from. This thing. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now, this is firstly a reminder to myself and then to you as a Muslim. It's the fact that we shouldn't let this worldly life divert us from the remembrance of Allah. You may be working on a skill, you may be working on a business, you may be trying to make your place in this dunya. But what you're forgetting is that when you don't establish your salah, you start like praying it outside of its time, or not even praying it at all because you've been focused on your studies or whatever thing that you're trying to pursue. This is a quality, a trait that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like. Now, how can we actually establish salah in these institutions? Well, firstly, most likely you're living in a non-Muslim country. So it's not very normal for you guys to have prayer group congregations in your workplace. So what you can do is before you start your new job, your university, your new college or school that you're going to, since it is the summer holidays, state to that person who is an authoritative figure in that place that you are a Muslim and you pray certain prayers throughout the day. Is it okay for me to pray, like, for example, Dhuhr, Asr, and Maghrib during my work time? Now, most likely you will have breaks in your workplace. Every workplace should have breaks if you are working probably 8 hours. But if you're working 4 hours, for example, still ask because there's no harm in asking. And most likely they will direct you to a prayer room if they have one, especially in college and university. However, if they don't and you're in work, then they will direct you to somewhere else. Like for me, for example, right? Where I work, I have a first aid room where I can pray in because it's very much unoccupied. It's rarely used. And if it is used, I would know because they would tell me beforehand. So you can do something like this. And it becomes very easy once you make that intention from the start and then you speak to someone like that you are a Muslim and that it is important for you to go and pray on time. This comes with having good akhlaq because you can't expect to have this ease in establishing your salah in the workplace if you are being rude, you're showing up late, you're not respecting people, and you're making people feel uncomfortable in the workplace for no reason, right? So one of the important things that you have to really take note of this is the fact that you are representing Islam. They're not going to, for example, read the Quran and be like, okay, that person is not acting in accordance with Islam because of X, Y, Z in the Quran. They're going to be looking at your actions. They're going to be looking at how you present yourself, how you interact with other people, how you maintain your religion, how you provide honesty, respect, and dignity when you're interacting with other people. Now that you've seen this, don't be afraid to pray outside. For sisters, obviously be very careful, be diplomatic about where you pray. But for brothers, especially guys, you gotta pray your salah when the time comes in, within those times, obviously. And you have to make sure that you don't compromise your religion for anything. Because this dunya is not worth the entire effort and living for if it means, neglecting the akhirah, which isn't our goal. Now, the second item, and you can guess as the viewer in three, two, one, is the miswak. If you got this right, you can go and comment, but don't cheat, by the way. So the miswak is a really good item because it's sunnah, it's easy to use, and it makes your teeth look very, very clean. Now, you may have braces like me, and I'll get on to that. But the main story behind me actually having this miswak is one time I was actually at the masjid and I saw this very tall brother, and he was like really tall. But what he did was he was using the miswak while he was waiting for the salah. So I think it was Maghrib. And I was just waiting for the salah, kind of looking around. And I just saw him just using this while he was waiting for it. And I was like, wait, is that a miswak? Because before I had previously been using the miswak, but now that I had gotten braces, if you couldn't tell, I decided, I can't really use it because there's no point. My teeth is going to break or something's going to happen to it. But these were just limiting beliefs because what you can do with the miswak is you can make it very soft if you really bite it correctly, in which I will show you guys how to do that in the future. But it's something that is very easy to do. It's sunnah and it can make you really be more like the righteous salaf of the past. There are some hadiths about the miswak in which Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu reported that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Had I not thought it difficult for my ummah, I would have commanded them to use the miswak before every salah." So firstly, you'd have to obtain a new miswak. And as you can see here, it would be quite hard at each end. So there aren't any bristles at the moment. So the main thing that you would do is just bite on it. So you'd go like this. And while biting on it, you have to make sure that you're making it soft, trying to make it soft at least. So that's how I did it at least. So the moment it becomes quite soft, not too soft, but soft to the point where you can almost feel it like being a bit squishy, that's the point where you have to start building those bristles by going like this. So now I've pretty much finished. As you can see here, the miswak shape has been completed. So there's no one size fit for all, right? I personally like my miswak to be quite thin and quite long because it helps my braces, my dentistry not be broken or spoiled because it's like a brush, it just goes over it. But some people, they like it quite hard so they can really like scrape at their teeth. But it depends, like just make sure that however you do it, it doesn't like cause any damage to you, but in a way that is like, I don't know, just good for you personally. So yeah, that's pretty much the miswak. So now that you have the miswak here, you can use it quite frequently throughout your day. Like you can be studying and then just while you're studying, you can just, clean your teeth with it. But it really depends. Like it's an easy sunnah that you can do, and it's something quite easy in terms of following what the righteous predecessors were doing in the past. Now the third item is this, Fortress of the Muslim. Now why this is so good is because it contains authentic du'as from the Quran and the Sunnah that you can recite. Now a very interesting story that I want you guys to pay attention to is I was in the masjid again and I saw the same brother, but we were in ruku and we were praying Maghrib. But you know how normally in Maghrib we say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, right? It's kind of standard, we do it like every day. But in this specific scenario, I heard him say something different. It was Subuhun Qudusun Rabbul Malaikati war Ruh. How strange was this for me to hear this for the first time? I was like, wait, what? He's saying something else? And then after the salah, I opened up my phone and I checked. And I realized you can say other du'as in different positions in your salah. It doesn't always have to be the traditional Subhana Rabbi al-A'la when you're in sujood and Rabbi ghfirli when we're in the sitting position, right? So looking at it now, I really want you guys to memorize certain du'as here. This is really good because it allows you to become so much more connected to Allah. Your khushu increases because now the salah is meaningful. It's not robotic. You're choosing what to say because you may be feeling a certain thing. You may want something in this dunya like money, success. And I'm talking about success and money to help Muslims or, people around the world that are suffering. Or you may want something like marriage or a better job or connections, friendships. If you change your salah, and I'm even talking about addiction that you may be struggling with, if you change your salah in this way that is in accordance with the sunnah and the Quran, you will see how much your life changes and how much you feel more connected to Allah. Now, I really want to show you guys this dua, and it's for the sitting position. I know a lot of you guys, you may be like hustlers or something, or you may be really working on something so that you can eventually go to Hajj or Umrah, right? And the dua is in between sujood. And even I am going to memorize this soon, inshallah. But it is Allahumma ghfirli warhamni wa ahdani wa jaburni wa afini wa razuqni wa rafa'ani. Oh Allah, forgive me, have mercy on me, guide me, support me, protect me, provide for me, and elevate me. How beautiful is this dua? Allah is giving you an opportunity to ask Him by doing the thing that He loves so much, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for us to really just like not memorize this, like, come on, guys, it makes your salah so much more meaningful and for you to have a better impact. This is just a reminder, but make sure you do say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim at least once before saying Subuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati wa Ruh. The same for all other du'as. It also helps you when you have doubts in your salah. You may be like, okay, did I make one sajda or two sajdas, right? But if you said one dua in the first sajda and a second dua in the second sajda, then you'll be like, oh yes, I've already made two sajdas, I don't need to make another one. It's the same with you forgetting which rak'ah you're in. Okay, in the first rak'ah, I said Subuhun Quddusun Rabbul Malaikati wa Ruh. In the second rak'ah, I said Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. This allows you to remember it. So you'll be like, oh yes, I'm on the third rak'ah that I'm standing for now. So it's really important, guys. Just implement this. Maybe even read it on the bus or try and memorize the du'as there as much as possible and make this your intention. I also have a new email list in which I'll be sending you du'as, reminders, my own personal stories, and things that you'll be able to see on the screen right now so that it can aid you in becoming a better Muslim. And what's also interesting is that I'll be sending you updates so that you can see the community that I'm making, inshallah. The one that will have Arabic practice between brothers and Arabic practice between sisters. And then also the live calls, the reminders together, and just in general the community so that people feel less alone and can actually share their thoughts and connect to each other. So it's something that I'm working on. The email list is in the description. You guys can click on that, inshallah. Now the final item, and you probably have guessed it already, is this, the Quran. Now I want you to underline these two important points. Learning the Quran allows you to get closer to Allah and know who He is. And then also learning the Quran are the keys to seeking knowledge. Now let's start with the first one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in one ayah, قُلْ إِنَّ رَبِّي يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Say, and this was referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, indeed Allah extends provision for whoever He wills and restricts it, but most of mankind or men know not. Now why this is so important is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking to us that we don't need to exert ourselves to the point where we're killing ourselves just to get a rizq, to the point where we're doing haram just to get a rizq. And this relates to me because last year I was really trying to get a job. I had applied for over 100, but I couldn't really get one. When I came across an ayah like this, I was like, well, all I need to do is just put in the efforts, which is the means, and then make dua, which allows that barrier that when it comes to luck to be overrun so that I can actually achieve the goal. Now, the next part that I mentioned was it is the keys to seeking knowledge. If you want to understand knowledge, ilm, you want to understand fiqh, aqidah, and understand these books that have been written, it all comes back to the Quran, because that's where their evidences are from. So if you can read the Quran and memorize it in a way that allows you, obviously according to the Quran and the Sunnah, with a teacher or something that allows you to understand the Quran, firstly, to a decent extent, to a point where you can recite the Quran in your salah fluently and you aren't making like major mistakes, and to the point where you understand who Allah is. Certain juz, like for example juz Tabarak, which is the 30th juz, it can really help you in your journey in seeking knowledge, because they will use evidences from the Quran, and when you can quote them, it can help you understand who Allah is, as I mentioned before, and understand the context of that specific field, that science of Islam that you want to go in. So that's basically everything. The email list is in the description, and everything else, all the resources, all of the items that you need in this video are in the description, so you can click that right now. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.